Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today is another Chit Chat Get Ready With Me where we're going to be talking about everything I loved and didn't love about The Big Bang Theory. Okay, so I finished my binge watching of The Big Bang Theory this week and I cried like a little baby, which was to be expected. I was really enjoying the show, really enjoyed the characters, so it's kind of what happens, I guess. You get attached to your fictional characters and then it just happens. I guess I'm just gonna get started talking about them. I'll just start with the characters first. So this is gonna be kind of a weird opinion and it does come with some caveats, but Howard Wolowitz was my favorite character. And I don't know if it's just because, like, the actor who plays him, I think he is just so cute. But I also think that I don't know, I really didn't like the pervy aspects of his character. I mean, it makes sense why they made him that way, I guess, because none of the other men were really like that. So it's a group of nerdy men, you gotta have one that's pervy, I guess. I don't know. I digress. But he was definitely my favorite character in the show. I think that he, as an actor, is clearly very, like, dynamic and interesting. I thought that the character of Wolowitz had a lot of different facets to it, too. Like, he did live with his mom, but he had all these different hobbies and, I don't know, all these interesting and different passions and wanting to be an astronaut and fulfilling that want to be an astronaut. And I think that, like, him and Bernadette are my favorite couple as well, because I think that they are the most realistic, and obviously you're not watching this for the realism, but I think that a reason why the show was created to begin with is because there are a lot of men in particular who are like these characters, not a one-for-one ratio, but in a way in which, like, there are a lot of men who, you know, maybe feel outcasted from society because they maybe like superheroes and they don't, I don't know, they don't act in the socially conventional ways, and so they get outcasted for one reason or another. There was a gap in media that was filled by The Big Bang Theory, and with that they also, like, touched on a bunch of different fun topics too. But back to Howard and Bernadette. It's interesting the way in which they introduced Bernadette, took her away, and then brought her back. I think that in terms of a love interest for Howard, I think she's perfect. I really enjoyed her characterization. I thought that she was very real in the fact that she has this baby face about her, and that makes her seem weak to other people, and so then she kind of has to, like, lash out sometimes, or, you know, be harder. Do I think that that bled into her personal life a little too much? Yeah, sure. But also, it's not like Howard was the most perfect husband who did everything and doted on her all the time. And it's interesting because they poke all these different holes in their relationship, which is very realistic, but yet they don't seem to, like, find fault in other relationships in the show. Like Leonard and Penny, for example. Switching gears, talking about Leonard and Penny now. I think that the Leonard and Penny relationship serves as a fantasy for many of the male watchers who are like, oh, all I want in life is just a hot woman. That is the only thing that, like, matters to me, if she's hot. And I think that they handled the character of Penny really well, in which, like, you know, she never really got to be an actress in LA. But also, they never really show her trying that hard, but that's not to say that she isn't. Whatever. But Leonard and Penny exist to fulfill a fantasy. Because Penny is also the only like, main character on the show without a college degree. Because even Stuart, who runs the popular comic book store that they go to, he has a fine arts degree, and his girlfriend is in college. And I think that they clearly, like, had to go back to the drawing board and figure out what characters what Penny's character is for. And I think that they did a lot of really good things with her, making her a salesperson. But it's interesting because there are so many dropped storylines of her not being happy with her job, but yet they never really explore that, I think. Not in a way that is like meaningful, or what it means to maybe like leave your first job that gives you a stable income. Also, Leonard is not like supportive of Penny. He likes her as this pedestal of perfection, and yet when he is with her, then he doesn't know what to do with her. And I think for at least their first run in the relationship, they don't like relate on anything. And it really kind of seems like they don't try and meet each other halfway either. And notice how it's always Penny who has to like learn about superheroes or watch Star Wars or something like that. And sure, Leonard goes shopping with her, but she very clearly loves shoes. And then, you know, there's never really any grand affection. There's an entire episode where Penny is basically like fantasizing about Leonard doing romantic acts because he doesn't do them anymore because he's got her, because he doesn't care. He wanted to get her because she was beautiful. But then for the rest of the series, after they get married, there's just so much like joking about how she settled for him, she's gonna leave him someday, all this stuff, and it's weird. It's kind of weird. I mean, I don't know. It just kind of like, if you're supposed to be doing a fantasy fulfillment, why would you put in there that she's going to leave? And here's the thing too, Penny was always loyal to Leonard. She never faltered. There's not even a storyline where she falters in her, like, devotion to Leonard. But yet right before they go and get married in Vegas, I think this was character assassination on their part. Or what they could have done is they could have broken them up and then kept the storyline going, I guess. But why did they make him cheat on her? And I do think that's pretty realistic that, you know, a man like him would cheat on his super hot girlfriend. We see it in real life all the time. But I just really think that if they were trying to go for this, I just think that that was like a poor characterization thing. Or the fact that it was like, okay, it happens in a season finale or something, and then you come in and by the second or third episode of the new season, it's dropped. Here's the thing, if they had characterized Penny to do something like that, the fan base never would have forgiven her. But because it's Leonard and he is just so nice, he's just such a nice guy, we can forgive it. Let's move on to Amy and Sheldon. I think that over the course of their relationship, obviously Sheldon gets better. That is a huge plot point, overarching, of like him learning. He's very autism coded. I hope that's okay for me to say, but like I feel like it's like said without being said a lot through the story. Like he doesn't understand social cues. He really doesn't like the niceties of social interactions. His friends love him despite him having these like quirks. And it's interesting because when they bring on Amy for the first time, she also is very much has those quirks. But as the series progresses, she's still quirky, but not in the same way. So what they really did was that they took the female Sheldon, but then made her like more humanized. They very much like made her a little bit more like socially acceptable. Which do I think was bad? No. It just is what they did. And I feel like I was talking with someone recently about this and they were like, Taylor, you realize that this was supposed to be watched like not back to back to back. So like you're noticing these things that a lot of people probably didn't notice when they first were like watching it. And I'm like, you know what? That's a really good point. But also, I don't care. I think that Amy breaking up with Sheldon the first time was super smart. But I don't like the way in which they got back together. Because everything in their relationship was always on Sheldon's terms, and he treated her really, really, really poorly in the breakup. And we also just forget that, like, there are certain times where Sheldon is just so misogynistic, and I guess yes, his character is from Texas, but I don't fully understand why they made that part of his characterization, because clearly Raj isn't like that, and neither is Leonard. Howard, I guess we can like do a toss-up yes and no. It's really hard because clearly he like loves and respects his wife, but at the same time, like, does he love and respect women? But like, you don't see, like, it's just weird. I feel like someone like him would value intelligence over what someone's like sex or gender is. So it is interesting that they gave him this kind of very minor characterization of being misogynistic, because he does say some very gross and misogynistic things to Amy. But are we really surprised? Because when Leonard and Leslie were doing their on again off again thing, Sheldon was constantly making misogynistic remarks to Leslie, and then we kind of drop it, and then we come back to it when it's like kind of convenient. And it's kind of weird that misogyny is kind of just like a plot point used when convenient. I think that yes, Sheldon gets better, but even in the last episode you can just see like Amy's frustration. And I'm not saying that you should never be frustrated with a partner, but to the extent in which she almost is like always frustrated with him, it's just like kind of saddening. Cause like that's I mean, a long life that you just devoted yourself to someone to basically apologize for them all the time. And should you be responsible for apologizing for your partner's actions? And I feel like that's a really good question and a really good kind of like think tank for those two. Because rarely does Sheldon, one, apologize, but two, like take responsibility for his actions. And Amy really does a lot of damage control. And the one time that Amy really lashes out, they basically try and be like, hey, you shouldn't be doing interviews for the college anymore because you had an outburst. And I feel like that is so unfair, but also so indicative for how women's anger and rage is treated in real life. It's also really interesting to see the ways in which these characters kind of like get together, because they kind of, it's very apparent in the show, like, yes, you want to like believe these things, blah, 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 but they really don't know each other. Like, the fact that it took until Howard and Bernadette were engaged for them to talk about children. I would never. Like, if I'm going to spend the rest of my life with someone, I need to know that, like, what are your opinions on children? Do you want them? Do you need to have them to feel like you've had a fulfilling life? And even Leonard and Penny, they were very much married when they first started talking about it, and it wasn't even a discussion. Penny was like, I don't want kids. And then everyone around her came down on her about it, which I also think is a really good representation of how women who don't want children are treated. What's wrong with you? Don't you realize how this affects me? Like, all this stuff, and like, haha, yeah, we can laugh about it, but also these things happen in real life. One thing I also started to realize about the show the longer I was watching it is that they would make some like weirdly gross jokes. And I mean gross as in like boogers kind of gross. And I was just like, why? I guess, you know, like, that's interesting. That's a choice. You know, I guess I would have to look up what more of the statistics are of, you know, who's watching this show. Is it more of a male audience? Is it more of a female audience? If I had to guess, I know that it's a really, really big sitcom, but I'm guessing that when it first started airing, clearly it was more for a male audience. But as the show went on, it very much became more of like an everybody kind of show, I think. Oh, and the last character I'm going to talk about is Raj. They end the show with him not having a love interest, and I feel like the show, I don't want to say forgot about him, but I feel like they really did him dirty in the fact that he is a man who is more in touch with his feminine side and likes to hang out with the girls and do girls' night, and he's very respectful towards them, and he goes to them for advice. He listens to their advice most of the time. I mean, granted, still a person, still flawed. He wasn't perfect by any means. But like, he clearly wanted love so bad, and it was interesting because I don't know if they ever truly gave him a chance, but clearly it seemed like he was a character that they were not interested in exploring past him getting over his selective mutism. And I feel like the Anu storyline with him wanting to get an arranged marriage was executed interestingly, but also poorly, since they were getting towards the end. And clearly, like, since the beginning, it's obvious that, like, the show should end with Sheldon winning a Nobel. I feel like that is just a very clear trajectory. It's a sitcom. It makes sense. I just feel like they could have done Raj so much better, and I feel like it's really a testament to the time capsule that this show is made in, that they make so many jokes about him potentially being gay. Because why is it that when we have men who are okay with expressing themselves and they're more, I guess we can call it feminine side, or being more in touch with their emotions, it's always, oh, well, they must be gay. Oh my gosh, they must have some problems. Like, what the heck? Like, that's not cool. I don't know. I think that they could have done Raj better. It's interesting too, because, like, I think that the way in which they handled the conflict between Raj and Howard was really good. The way that Raj and Howard, like, they're like, we're best friends, we're best friends, we're best friends. It's kind of how me and my best friend are. We're like, we're best friends, we're best friends, we're best friends. Like, just having the best time. Probably seemingly a little too close on the outside, but just bestie boos to the core. And I just think that they could have given him a romantic love interest that was, like, into the things that he was also into, or was, like, okay with him being more feminine. Because every girl that they paired him with was very much like, oh, I don't like that you like no designer brands, or all this sort of stuff. I don't know, it just kind of makes me sad. But, I mean, he also wasn't perfect. I mean, none of the characters were. I also want to say, I think it's really cool and interesting that they had this group of, you know, physicists and engineers, like all these very highly educated men, also dating and marrying highly educated, ambitious, like, noteworthy women. I know that, like, Penny wasn't, I mean, she never went to college, doesn't have a degree, nothing, but she also, especially once they, like, pivot her character from acting, she's a really hard worker and clearly very good at what she does. But I also think that Leonard didn't like when she was starting to succeed. But as I'm finishing my makeup, I feel like that would be a discussion for another time. Overall, I really did like this show. I think that it went on for exactly as long as it needed to be. Like, I think if they had kept going, it would have been too long. But it definitely is one of those shows they probably could have gone on for as long as they pleased. I really like the show. I don't know. It's interesting because at the end, the characters have all very clearly, like, grown up and changed. But I also think that not that there could have been more, but so let's think about it in terms of, like, other sitcoms. If you watch my other Chatty Get Ready With Me talking about all the sitcoms I've ever watched. Thinking about it in terms of, like, Parks and Rec, where everyone most of them didn't even live in the same places anymore. Or what was another one that I felt like they really, like, changed? I mean, Parks and Rec is really, like, the big one for me, because you really see, like, they change jobs multiple times. They get together with people, they break up. Whereas, like, a lot of this show, like, they all work together. Other than Bernadette and Penny, who then work together. And it's interesting the dynamic that they kind of made between Bernadette and Penny, towards the end of the show. Because you see more scenes of them kind of, like, hanging out in Bernadette's office, or, like, getting lunch, or their kind of trials and tribulations from work. I guess what I wanted for the end of the show, what would have, like, really solidified things for me, was if they all moved out of the apartment building. Like, I know in, I think, the second to last episode, the elevator finally gets fixed. And that is always like a point of like, oh my god, the elevator, it's just never gonna get fixed. I think like good on them for that, but I also, you know, Bernadette and Howard are the only ones who have a house. Granted, it is Howard's late mother's that was kind of like passed down to them. But I really think it could have been cool if Leonard and Penny and Amy and Sheldon started like looking for houses and started kind of moving forward isn't the right words that I'm looking for. I feel like that's not a fair word to use. Moving on from their apartments. Showing how they've like grown out of this space that they've grown in for so many years. I feel like that could have been a really good kind of way to kind of close things off. Like they win the Nobel, what are you gonna do next? Well, Sheldon and Amy want to have children, so probably that. And then, you know, Penny is pregnant at the end of the series and stuff. And so, like, they are doing all these big life things. Are you going to raise a child in an apartment? There's nothing wrong with that, but are you going to do that? You know, like all these different questions that I guess the end of the series kind of brings up. But these are all just my opinions and like all this stuff. Overall, I really liked it. I could see myself rewatching it. It literally is just one of those shows that you can like pick an episode, watch, and like just have a good time. Now I am binge watching Adventure Time because I need to watch that. I've always been really interested in Adventure Time. It started coming out as I was like more of an older teenager, and although I've always liked cartoons, although I still like it, like I've seen seasons 1 and 2 like so many times, so I could not start in seasons 1 and 2. I could probably, like, you put it on, I recognize like every episode from those 2 seasons. So I think I started on season 3, having a good time because I want to watch Distant Lands and then Fiona and Cake. It's just like a universe that I want to flesh out, I guess. But yeah, makeup's done. Thank you so much for sitting and chatting with me. Let me know your opinions of the Big Bang Theory down below, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I love just sitting down and kind of deep diving into my thoughts into things, and I just would love to hear what you guys think as well. So I will see you guys next time. Bye!